Peace be upon you, and God's mercy and blessings. My name is Kushi Happy and I have come up with some very nice and useful things for you guys. 4 stories about sinners. 1. Fire blazed up in grave. Sayyiduna Amir bin Shurabil has stated, once a person who was considered very pious passed away. After his burial, the angels of punishment entered his grave and said, "We will hit you 100 whips as punishment." Frightened, he asked, "Why will you punish me? I was a righteous person." They replied, "We will hit you 50 whips. But he continued to argue with them. At last they decided to hit him only 1 whip. So they hit him 1 whip, which filled the entire grave with blazes of fire and burnt him to ashes. When he was revived, he asked, shivering with pain, "Why was I hit this whip?" They answered, "Once you offered salah without wudu, and once an oppressed man came to you for help but you did not help him." Sharh Sudr, pages 165. Dear Islamic brothers, did you see even a pious and righteous person was punished in his grave in case of the displeasure of Allah? Allah have mercy on us and forgive us without holding us accountable. 2. Unjust weighing led to divine wrath of Allah. Sayyiduna Aris Mosibi has stated that there was a person who used to do the work of measuring grain. He left his job and occupied himself with worshipping Allah. When he died, some of his close relatives saw him in a dream and asked, "How has Allah treated you?" He replied, "Due to my carelessness, dust had stuck onto the scale I used to use for weighing grain. I did not use to clean it, because of which the amount of grain equal to the weight of the dust would reduce at the time of weighing. I am now being punished for that." Akhlaq Aliyin, pages 56. 3. Screams from grave. Similarly, another man who used to weigh food and sell without cleaning his scales was also punished in his grave after his death, and people even heard him screaming from inside his grave. Some pious people pitied him and prayed for his forgiveness, and by the blessing of their prayers he was relieved from his punishment. Where do haram earnings end up? There is a lesson in these 2 admonitory narrations, especially for those who weigh things dishonestly. O Muslims! Although, sometimes, an apparent increase takes place in the wealth due to weighing unjustly, no goodness lies in this wealth. At times, these unlawful earnings prove to be a nuisance even in this world. This income may be lost in the form of huge medical fees, expensive medicines, robbery, bribery or theft, and above all, it may well bring about punishment in the hereafter. 2 mountains of fire. It is stated in Ruhul Bayan, "The one weighing unjustly will be thrown into the depths of hell on the day of judgment, and having been made to sit between 2 mountains of fire, will be commanded to weigh them. When he approaches the mountains, the fire will burn him." Ruhul Bayan, pages 364, volume 10. O Muslims! Although, sometimes, an apparent increase takes place in the wealth due to weighing unjustly, no goodness lies in this wealth. At times, these unlawful earnings prove to be a nuisance even in this world. This income may be lost in the form of huge medical fees, expensive medicines, robbery, bribery or theft, and above all, it may well bring about punishment in the hereafter. 2 mountains of fire. It is stated in Ruhul Bayan, "The one weighing unjustly will be thrown into the depths of hell on the day of judgment, and having been made to sit between 2 mountains of fire, will be commanded to weigh them. When he approaches the mountains, the fire will burn him." Ruhul Bayan, pages 364, volume 10. Dear Islamic brothers, ponder for a moment. The foregoing narration contains the admonition of extremely severe punishment for weighing unjustly for the sake of a few despicable coins in this short-lived life. Today, one cannot bear the heat of the world. How can one bear the scorching heat of 2 mountains in hell? For the sake of Allah, avoid greed for wealth, or else unlawful earnings will lead to ruin in the world as well as in the hereafter. 4. Burden of a toothpick. Sayyiduna Wahb bin Munabba has stated, there was a young Israelite who repented of all previous sins, and spent 70 years worshipping consistently. He would fast during the day and worship at night. He was so pious that he would refrain from resting in any sort of shade and from eating delicious foods. When he died, some of his close relatives saw him in a dream and asked, "How has Allah treated you?" He replied, "Allah held me accountable, and forgave all of my sins, but unfortunately I am still not allowed to enter heaven because of using a toothpick without its owner's permission. I had not apologized to its owner. After all, a sin is a sin." Dear Islamic brothers, tremble with fear. When the wrath of Allah intensifies, one can be punished even for such a sin he considers very minor, as mentioned in the previous narration that a righteous man was prevented from entering heaven simply because he used a splinter as a toothpick without its owner's permission and died without seeking forgiveness from the owner. Ponder for a moment. What is the worth of a splinter? These days, people defraud others of millions of dollars and feel no remorse at it.